And tell me, repeat what you just told me, because I think you said two really interesting things that I wanted document.
So the only known side effect, according to the double-blind clinical trials at Colorado State University Veterinary School, is diarrhea. And it was, first of all, it was in a very small percentage of the dogs tested. But we all know that that's not from CBD itself. That's from the oil. And any dog that takes in any kind of oil, whether it be like I have a dog here that's a small breed terrier that I give the leftovers from my big dog's food from, and they get like coconut oil mixed into this wet food, the single source protein wet food that I give them, and his stool is a little loose for the first few days, and that was directly from the coconut oil. Oddly enough, there's also food-grade diatomaceous earth in there, which should counteract it. But if if there's not that balance there and it hasn't built up in your system, then yeah, you're going to have the dog's going to have a little diarrhea. So
and that's a side effect of what? Too much of the hemp oil?
Too much oil, period. Like it could be any carrier oil. You could have coconut oil, MCT, salmon oil. I'm seeing being used now. Krill oil. It's just the volume of oil, period, because it's just like it's when it's on your hands, it coats your hands and you can't really wash it off effectively. Okay. So it coats the inside of your stomach and therefore you get loose stool. Okay. So with that being said, the idea was always to increase the concentration of CBD, not the volume of oil. So sort of what we based a lot of our formulation off of was Whole Pet, which is the brand used in the clinical trials. So with that being said, like they have three sizes, all 30 milliliter bottles, 600, 1200, and 2400 milligrams. So the two things that we realized from watching what they do is that there's sort of two benefits from doing what we're doing. One is it makes it cheaper per milligram, and the obvious other one is that it makes it it makes it so that the dog can take a whole lot less oil. So I'll give you a real world example. On the economic side, their 50 milliliter bottle retails, 600 milligram bottle retails for $50. So if you do the math, 50 times 4 is 200. So it would make more sense for you to buy their large bottle. So if you have a 20-pound dog, you would use a quarter of a milliliter of the large rather than a whole milliliter of the small. Right? So to continue on with that thought, we're doing 4,800 milligrams and 30 milliliters. But instead of mimicking them and having it where each bottle stays the same, but we decrease the volume of CBD or the concentration of CBD, we're actually just decreasing the volume of the oil, but keeping the concentration. So we're going to offer a 5 ml, 800 milligram bottle, which is huge. People are like, how does that work? Yeah. Well, there's 20 drops in a milliliter. And there's 5 milliliters in the bottle, so that's 200 drops. Sorry, did I just say that? Yeah, 200 drops. No, 20 drops, 5 milliliters, 100 drops, 100 drops. So that's 100 days for an 8-pound dog in a 5 milliliter bottle. Wow. Or if you just want to try it, and this is the big psychology of the sale right here. A lot of people call me and say, like, I believe you. What you're saying makes sense. I looked it up. People out there agree with you. You have science speaking behind you. The problem is I don't want to spend $225 MSRP plus tax. I just want to try it first. Well, there's two issues there. One, that it takes 3 to 4 days of constant use for it to have its real effect. So with that being said, you have to have a size that's going to last 3 or 4 days. So let's say, for example, that you have a 5 ml bottle and you have a 160-pound dog, which is sort of the max level here. Mm-hmm. You can give a full recommended dose of 160 milligrams a day in that 160-pound dog for 5 days with that. So you can get to see if it works in 5 days, or at least see something, Mm-hmm. So with that being said, there should be a lot of sales of the 5 ml bottle. Furthermore, you may have people that still have a hard time with the 225 and don't want to spend that. So now we're going to have a 15 ml 2400 milligram bottle. Whole Pet market MSRP for me is $150. I should tell you that the 2400 milligram bottle from Mary's Medicinals on their site is $200. So I'm undercutting them already by $50. And this bottle will be like $135, $140. So we're actually going to beat them on that too. So we're beating them on price. We're beating them on formulation. the fact is we're also putting these terpenes in there in addition to being full spectrum. They're organic, botanically derived, non-cannabis terpenes. I don't have the list in front of me, but
you had mentioned about a couple terpenes that were not good for dogs that you were able to remove.
Yeah, so it turns out that there's a lot of evidence that D-limonene or limonene is, they used to use it in like orange zest shampoos and like pest repellents and things like that. So it turns out that it can be toxic. Fortunately, the toxicity is like 308 grams per pound or something super high. So there's little to no chance that even if it were in there that it would hurt the dogs. But instead, I'm just going to be better safe than sorry because we really want to have the veterinarians on our side. So we're going to remove the limonene and the linalool.
Okay.
Which are both sort of citrus-based issues. What we're ultimately wanting to do, because we're sort of dual marketing this, as I mentioned before, is that we want to make it taste good. The dogs don't care. Like I gave my dog some of the stuff that I have right now this morning. He didn't care. He just wanted what it was on, Yeah. So, but as far as you and I might be concerned, we want it to taste good. So we're working on the balance of those 12 terpenes, plus the naturally occurring terpenes that come with the full spectrum, even though it's only 20% of the total mixture. So we have to come up with a flavor that actually makes sense and tastes good. Mm-hmm. Because this stuff also is a little different than another thing that differs from Whole Pet is that they're using fractionally distilled hemp oil, which is really very similar to like a cooking oil consistency and color and smell. And so ours is like an MCT coconut mixture, and it's thin. So instead of calling it an oil, we're going to actually change it to a tincture because by definition, it really isn't. It is oily. It is oil, but it is not oily.
Okay.
It doesn't sit in your mouth and leave that film or anything like that.
Okay. Interesting. Briefly, just for viewers and potential customers, you have a very interesting backstory. But why did you get into pets? You run a dog rescue. I'm not exactly sure what your affiliation with.
Yep. So I have a dog rescue. Started it in my mom's a dog rescuer, and before that she was a show dog breeder. So like I've just been around dogs my whole life. But she's been in rescue for like 12 years or something like that. So maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, I started coordinating for a rescue, a multi-state rescue. And then I started my own and got my 501c3 in August of 2016. But what brought the way that ended brought me to CBD is that I had rescued a dog who had really bad skin, and one of the standard things you do with dogs with bad skin when you take them to the vet is you sort of go through all the list of possible allergies, assuming that it's an allergy. And so one of them could have been flea allergy. So at the time they thought it would be a good idea to do Bravecto, which is a oral flea and tick medication. It's one of those ones that has a small print that says something to the effect of like, if you've ever had seizures, don't take this,
Okay. Yeah.
And so the dog that in question never had any seizures that anyone had ever known about. I mean, he had been in foster care with friends of mine for like 6 months, and no one had ever seen any evidence of any of this stuff. So he took 1 dose of Bravecto and developed idiopathic head tremors. Ooh. So he actually had his first like extensive one this morning. His first one this morning, like in, I don't know, like a year. And it's basically because I've not been giving him CBD. Oddly enough, I think that, there's direct cause and effect here. Mm-hmm. And it lasted a while. So I gave him a strong dose today, and we'll play with the dosage to see what I can do because this is one of those conditions, I think as long as it's in the system a little bit, it works. Okay. So, but I don't know. Nobody really knows. That's why they call it idiopathic. It means AKA we don't know. So, as a result of that, I had to learn very quickly about CBD and dogs. I come from the cannabis industry, and so obviously I was very well versed on everything, including people and CBD and things like that, but not necessarily with pets. And I didn't know what an idiopathic head tremor was, so I wanted to look it up and try and figure out why. To me it looked like a seizure. So I was like, okay, well, it's helping these little kids in Colorado why wouldn't it help my dog? So, and I lived in Berkeley, California at the time, so it wasn't hard to walk down the street to a pet store and get CBD treats.
Okay.
So I started on treatables, and treatables was one of the very limited number of companies on the market at the time. I mean, a lot has happened in like the last 3 years, So treatables is a good company. They're a medical cannabis company that already had the room, the materials, the kitchen that they were making edibles for under another name. And then they just decided, well, why not do pet stuff? Because we're already doing this. It wouldn't be hard, They're using supercritical CO2 extraction sprayed on the treats. So there's some debate as to whether or not how effective that was, et cetera, et cetera. So I started to learn a lot about it. What I found, though, was that the treats are extremely lacking in potency. So they had two sizes. They have a small breed and a large breed treat. The large breed treat is 1 treat for every 25 pounds. My dog weighs 95 pounds. So I was giving him 4 treats, but it wasn't really as effective as I would hope it would be. So I'd call them up and I'd talk to them, and they'd say, hey, maybe you could do it every 4 to 6 hours. So I said, okay. So I was giving him, 4 treats 3 times a day.
Yeah.
It's damn near a bowl of kibble. He got fat.
Yeah.
So he gained weight. So there had to be a better solution.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing too is that, I found out that their treats were at the time like 2 to 3 milligrams each. And so what we learned from that is that they're subscribing to the old anecdotal data. What I actually realized yesterday is that the old anecdotal data from dogs is the same as people, really. Everybody's doing this 1 milligram to 10 pounds thing. And the reality is that is not necessarily accurate with dogs. The other anecdotal dosage was 0.14 milligrams per pound of body weight per day, which is essentially the same thing. And it just wasn't working. So, make a long story short, I started this sort of mission to vet the industry and to vet companies and products. And there's a lot of crap out there. It's amazing to me. Like, I started right away with Canapet and Canna Companion. They're both, by the way, they're like spin-offs of each other. Disgruntled employees starting their own thing or whatever. And they may have improved since then, but I can tell you that Canapet is like one of the worst products on the market today, hands down. They're non-transparent. They're not honest. They've been caught in lies by the FDA. There are lies all over their website, and they've made millions upon millions of dollars, to the point that I think I told you that one of their first initial investors just bought the Black Dahlia house in Hollywood. So, and he's going to transition it into a CBD haven for artists. Go figure, whatever. But that's like, I mean, he must have made millions and millions of dollars,
Yeah.
So, so what I found is that treatables, they started doing oil too, and their stuff was extremely low potency. They have like a 30 mil, 90 milligram bottle, and 125 or 150. And then I noticed that everybody was making, 300 mils or 350 seemed to be like the going average. And so what I then start to realize is that what people are really doing is going to a large-scale white labeler like Folium Biosciences and just buying it from them, because they make a high-quality product that's extremely expensive, and they'll do all the work for you. So, of course, people are going to do that. You know what I mean? And they don't know any better. So, so with that being said, like, that's why you see so many of the same products over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I started to notice, and this is something that's I get from the human side, is that in the state of California, you have to test all your products. It's the law, and it has to be a third-party lab that's approved by the state. Well, to me, this is just as important. So I'm wondering why that's not being enforced. That being said, I make sure that I work with companies that are providing test results. And those test results need to show not only potency, terpene content, cannabinoid content, which is the same as potency essentially, and contaminants like, myco-insecticides and, things like that. Even the organic stuff that you're not supposed to spray on there, if you do it at the wrong time, is not good. So fast forward to like beginning of 2017, I reached out to my friend Dave, who is the CEO of Elite Cannabis in Colorado, a licensed hemp producer, who makes all the oil for Mary's Nutritionals and Mary's Medicinals. And I knew, that he has bully breeds, and I'm a bully breed rescuer. So I was like, hey, what are you doing for your dogs? And I knew that all of the people that we know together, he and I have mutual friends work for him. And and they all have pit bulls and other bully breeds. So I said to myself, like, well, maybe he's making oil. Why wouldn't he? He's got a 2,000 square foot ISO 9 clean room environment, that's his, and all the products he could ever come up with, he can come up with. So I reached out to him. He's like, you know what? I've been making it for 3 years for my dogs, and and my family's for dogs and things like that. So he never really wanted to go to market with it. So I'm like, why wouldn't you want to go to market with that? There's a lot of crap out there. Why not? He said, maybe we will. He was sort of lackadaisical about it. I said, well, I'm encouraging you to do it. I would definitely sell your product. Being part of the social media world in terms of dog rescue is a huge value. And he was like, well, so here's what's happening. A friend, the brother of the head vet at Colorado State Vet School is a friend of theirs, and contacted them about participating in a clinical trial and providing the oil. And they said that they would do it, and it was being funded by a gentleman out of New York. So if you were to look it up now, it will actually say that the company, that the product's being used, if you can even find any reference to it, is actually this other company. It's like American Bio something or other. But that's actually a company that's buying their products white labeled, and only at I think they're only doing 300 milligrams and 600 milligrams. So even there, like, the test didn't have the full spectrum. They had to use one set, one concentration, and that's why they probably got diarrhea. But it's important, while you're doing these things, to really note. No, in a study, it doesn't matter. Like, you want to have consistency anyway. So of course they had the products. I wanted to keep, I wanted to run with their products. So they went to market with it late summer of 2017, which is awesome. But I knew what I found interesting is that they were only making one product. So they only have oil for now. They're in the process of doing a couple other products, which haven't hit market. Mary's Nutritionals rebranded some of their other products for pets. Like, they have a gel pen that they just sort of rebranded. But they don't have anything else. So I had to start looking in the industry for the best products that could be vetted in other categories, like oil, not just oil, but topicals, and then subcategories like spray, topical versus ointment. And then treats. Treats are still a big thing because it's the easiest thing for people to wrap their head around. So that's when I ran into the only other company that I've really ever endorsed, and that's King Canine out of Florida. And we're not currently selling their products because, and I actually appreciate this about them, is that they pulled all their products for reformulation. What's interesting about King Canine is that they're the only brand of anything ever endorsed by the American Kennel Club. They don't endorse anybody. They have other non-CBD products too, and that may be part of why they did that. But nonetheless, if I could work with them, I would. The thing that makes them interesting on an oil level, but I don't carry it, is that they're using krill as the carrier oil. So it's a really great product. It just is really pricey per milligram.
Okay.
So that goes back to this product, Farmacopeia, the 4800, or we call it the 8 milligram drop in 30 milliliters. So because that's important. An 8 milligram drop is, so like to compare, like what somebody would do with a 20-pound dog on the small whole pet, they would likely use 1 milliliter per day of that whole milliliter. With ours, they're using way over what they need to with 3 drops. So you can just see the volume right there. I mean, it's a big difference. There's no stomachs being upset. And incidentally, there's even some extreme cases of pancreatitis that have developed from the ingestion of too much oil.
Wow. Okay.
Not from CBD oil necessarily, just oil period. Like if a dog gets into the kitchen and, eats something they shouldn't, So
for a typical 20, 40-pound dog, you're saying one drop has 8 milligrams of CBD?
Correct.
And so you're looking at, for a 20-pound dog, 2.5, 3 drops. For a 40-pound dog, 6, 7 drops. That's simple. That's easy.
And so like our bottle obviously has 30 mils in it, unless we overfill it slightly, which has been known to happen. It should have 600 drops in it. So if you're doing 3 drops a day, that bottle that you just spent $225 on is going to last you, 200 days.
Wow, and you can use, and people can use this as well. You're reformulating a version for humans and working on flavor and taste, but right out of the box, people can take this pet stuff and use it on themselves.
Oh yeah, it's the same thing. The only, obviously we're not telling you that on the pet site because we want to sort of not have any sort of issues with, with cross-contamination on a legislative issue. But I mean, yeah, absolutely. I've used it myself. And I can tell you that it is tasty. It is not hard to have in your mouth. Like it's not oily. And at the end of the day, the whole idea is that if it's good enough for us, it's good enough for them, and vice versa. So,
right, okay,
so why? And everyone always asks me, like, what's the difference between pet products and human products? The answer is, unless you're using like bacon flavor, nothing. Honestly, like, and that's the thing is everybody. And what's funny is that if you really go look at the industry, the products, if you do a survey of the industry, you'll find that the same volume and concentration is more expensive for people than it is for pets. So I'd like to try and change that too.
Yeah,
I'd like to just make it one thing, period.
Yeah.
That's taking advantage of some kind of marketing that I couldn't even begin to explain.
Yeah.
So with that being said, we will be the cheapest milligram price on the market retail, our MSRP. And it comes to like 4 cents or almost somewhere around 4 cents a milligram.
Oil.
And full spectrum.
And the brand is what? Farmacopeia Pets?
So yeah, so the pet side is Farmacopeia Pets. We are still trying to we're considering what the brand how to brand it on the human side. So stand by on that one. Okay. We thought about just calling it Farmacopeia and then having Farmacopeia Pets and Farmacopeia People. Okay. But we don't want to have any cross contamination in terms of any potential issues that might stem from, issues.
Yeah.
I don't want to say law enforcement, but I guess that's ultimately what it boils down to.
Yeah, well, it looks like we're end of April 2018, and things are changing for the positive every day. I'm seeing so much more support on a congressional level, Senate level for CBD particularly, and so I think we have a lot less worried about today than I did 2 years ago starting this business up. Which is
absolutely
great stuff to look forward to. Well, I'm going to shut this interview off for the time being. Okay. You've been incredibly helpful and a lot of great information. I'd like to keep you on the phone for a minute and try to talk you into giving me a discount so I can pass that on to my customers and we can get some people trying this stuff out.
Yep.
Pet Month is coming up in a couple weeks.
Yep. 100%.
And so we're going to hopefully be ready by then, and I'm excited to help you promote this product. I think it's a fantastic one. And again, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. I'm just going to stop the recording.